Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Coach's Corner. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. For those of you who are new, welcome. Check us out on all the cool social media gadgets and gadgets. We share some leadership tips and items and books and recommendations all throughout the week. So make sure you give us a follow and check out some of the other stuff that we're doing. As I said, welcome to Coach's Corner. This is a 20-minute quite quick stop, timeout, tips and tricks sharing between ourselves and sports coaches much like yourself. This is a time to think about not just like a little bit of theory, but like what are some tools I could use right now? What's something I could try out and try on with my team and my staff and my program right now? Right? Kind of like we do at a halftime or a timeout where we quickly give some tips and tricks and hopefully our players go out and implement them. So that's our aim today. And our topic today is character-driven leadership, which is exactly what we really focus in on and do here at Strive. So we are committed to spreading the power of character-driven leadership. This means that we really, really care about how you lead. We really believe that how you lead matters, okay? Not just leading, right? Being really intentional about how we go about doing that. And so we run workshops, we run full-day summits, multi-day retreats with people all the way from middle school age to college age and the adults that work in those spaces with them, such as yourselves, right? So these are just some quick tidbits of a lot of the work that we do and we dive into. So what does that look like? It looks like breaking down what we truly mean by leadership and then teaching it, cultivating it and growing it in the same way that we do with so many of our sports skills, right? The time, the effort, the energy, the planning that we give to making our athletes stronger and fitter and faster and better. Can we do that same thing with many of these soft skill concepts, right? And so today, one of the concepts that we're really going to dive into is character-driven leadership, okay? And so while you all have these toolboxes, where you all probably already have some tools that you use to develop leadership and cultivate leadership on your team, maybe they just need a bit of sharpening. Maybe you just need to be reminded that maybe we can add some new ones in for you. Right? So I'm going to level set with you all. My only expectation is for you all to be sponges today. I start most of my work with saying this and ask, what does a sponge do? Right? And you all yell back, yeah, I can hear you in the abyss of the internet saying that you soak up water, right? You soak things up. And so that's what I want you to do today. Really just focus on how much information can you soak up? And then when the moment comes, what can you squeeze out? Right? What's going to work for your team or your program or your department, right? Utilizing what is needed where. So the first step around leadership is either ensuring you have a framework or becoming aware of the framework you have, right? I'm not here to tell you the one way you should do leadership on your team, right? I don't believe in that. We do not believe in that. However, we do know that we all have a lens and a framework that we look at what we believe is true about leadership. Right? Be that this is the way we want people to lead. This is the way we want to be led. This is what it looks like on this team or in this classroom, right? A lot of the times it's influenced from our own experiences or things we've read and things we've seen. It's not to say it's right. It's not to say it's wrong. But first and foremost, having an awareness of what framework do you adhere to or abide to, okay? So here at Strive, ours starts with this foundation and this scaffold. And I'd encourage you to really think about this. When you look at these statements, I would say you've probably all heard of at least one of these statements or all of these statements. Maybe we've even used them ourselves. The first thing we want to say at Strive is we do not believe these things to be true. Right? We do not believe these things to be fact. We do not believe that there is one right way to lead. In fact, we think it's a lot more like playing golf, where you've got to use one you've got to use one thing to tee off, right? And you've got to use another club to putt the ball in, right? That different moments require different types of leadership, right? So there's not just one right way to lead. We don't believe that to be a leader, you have to have a title. And not all people who have titles are leaders, right? We do not believe you have to be loud, charismatic, and outgoing. We also absolutely do not believe you are born a leader. Listen, guys, for anyone who's ever been around young kids, you know that there's not that much that they can do. And so leadership is quite a big task to expect them to have been born at being able to do. He or she or they is a natural leader, right? Some of these things can be true, but they are not fact. And so we dispel those early on. We say that's not part of our framework, right? So then the next question is like, what is a part of your framework? Right? Well, part of our framework is informed by the research, which says that people who are emotionally intelligent are far more successful at leading others, leading themselves, and being a part of a successful team and organization. That's the fact, right? What does emotional intelligence mean? It's all the research done by Daniel Goleman and other incredibly great people, right? Which says that first and foremost, a leader, yourself, the people on your team, whoever you're looking at as a leader, right, needs to have self-awareness, needs to know about their emotions, their abilities, their strengths, their weaknesses. Who are they? What informs them? And as they gain that awareness, they're able to take that next step of like, how do I manage that? How do I influence that? How do I react now that I have this information, that I tend to do this over this, that this is an area that I'm good at, that this is something I'm growing in? And once that happens, an emotionally intelligent person is actually able to look at others and go, I recognize those things in others, or these are the differences, or these are the similarities. This is empathy, which we talked about last time, right? This is why my group functions the way I do, because right? And then that last step is that ability to influence, right? That ability to motivate, to affect others because of the things that you've recognized in them. So doing that for yourself, having that ability for yourself, improves your leadership. But how can you do that with your team? How can you continue to encourage that with your team? Well, step one is also rethinking how we think about leadership. Instead of top down, right? That everyone, right, is basically athletes are here to kind of listen to the captains, and the captains are here to listen to the assistant coach, and it's assistant coach to coach, and so on and so forth, right? Much like our traditional structure. We actually turn that around. We say the most important thing in this, the most important leaders and potential leaders are actually athletes. How can I figure out, and your layers might look different, but how can I as a coach figure out, how can I better serve the needs and lead my assistant coach so they can better serve and lead the captains? And how can I better lead and serve the captains so that the experience for every athlete is one of purpose, of one of belonging, and one of cultivating leadership, right? So adding that in, thinking about that within the framework of your own team, right? And the first way you can do that, quite a simple trick on the surface, but hard to ingrain, is changing the way your team uses the language. You need to do this. I need you to do this. It goes back to that old model of you're serving my purpose. You're serving me. You're serving my mission. Instead of we need to, right? What does that look like? I need you to hold her accountable. You need to hold yourself accountable. We need to figure out how to hold each other accountable. Right? That quick switch of we're in this together. It is our mission, right? This is how we will lead. We will lead together. Does multiple things. It makes a good assumption that everyone is either trying to be a leader, can learn to be a leader, or already is a leader, right? And everyone's like, okay, now I'm on board. It's also my responsibility. But if I'm watching a coach who's saying I'm like, oh, as long as it's not aimed at me, I'm not involved in that. We need to hold each other accountable. Okay, we're kind of in this together. We need to all be fitter, or we need every player on this team to be fit. We need it, so we need to do it together, right? So you're shifting that responsibility into one of collaboration, and you're doing that because leadership and good leaders do things with others, not to, not for, and please not, right? So that's where it's high challenge, where you set a bar, and we'll talk about that in a second, where you set a bar as a leader. And by highly connecting, by having a personal relationship, by building towards influencing and motivating, being emotionally intelligent, you're able to move with people to that high challenge, right? So here, your high challenge is everyone must be over a 3.0, right? High challenge, right? Maybe it's high, maybe it's 4.0, whatever it is, a high challenge. How are we going to do this together? How are we going to have connection on individual layers where we can hold each other accountable, where we can help each other to meet that high challenge? That's leadership from you and influencing leadership within your team, right? And this all stems from a really important theory of learning, okay? Where an individual, so your player or yourself, right, is going through this journey, right? This move to learning leadership, to being a character-driven leader. So step one is you as a coach need to ask yourself, like, what is the ideal state of a leader on my team? The team needs to decide that as well. What is the ideal state of a leader? Maybe it's captains, right? What's the ideal state of captains? What is the ideal? And after that, you then have them reflect, well, like, who am I right now? Just who am I? What are my strengths and weaknesses? And then you compare the two, step 3, right? Like, okay, so as I'm discovering these things, like, where are the gaps, right? Where do my strengths align? Where are my opportunities for growth, right? Okay, great. I've recognized that. And now what is the agenda? What is the agenda to get you to that ideal state? And that's really where, as a coach, you're creating opportunities, and we'll talk about some of the tools like book clubs, meetings, lunch bunch, right? Where you're giving an opportunity to get people to grow and learn towards the ideal state of leader. It's not for me to tell you exactly what the ideal state of leader should look like. That's for you to determine and your team to determine, right? So that they know where it stands. So just as you set out goals and standards and define success for fitness, for weightlifting, for scoring goals, for winning games, for grades, what is your standard for leadership? Empathy? Is it motivation? Is it energy? Is it hard work? Is it discipline? Is it accountability? Is it authority? What is it? Define it, and then create opportunities and ways to get there that you're supporting them. Same way as you give drills and plays and feedback and video, right? How are you doing that with leadership? How are you cultivating that character-driven leader on your team and within yourself? So here are the stages. Define it. What does it look like in the classroom, in the weight room, on the field, during games, in practices, in social settings? Define it. Define it so that everyone knows, yes or no, did I do it or not, right? Start thinking about what's already going to make that difficult, and then set up ways to negate that difficulty, be it a buddy system, be it a leadership council, right? Again, by knowing what it is, knowing what it looks like, knowing what makes it difficult, that then helps define what you need, right? What my team might need might be different than yours because of the things that came before it, right? Which is why there's not one magic way to do all this. Right? So we got to define that success, and so then we can have a path forward, right? So if that's the theory, if that's really what we want to buy into, right? What are some ways we can do this, right? So one of them is to come up with some fun activities of defining leadership. I often give out Legos and build what you think a leader should look like, draw what you think a leader should look like, create with these random materials, and then you can have a discussion as a team, right? About why did you build all this? Right? And then you can put all the pieces together and say, well, I guess this is our ideal leader. What does this mean? So it's a fun activity that you can just be doing, okay? It's defining leadership by bringing words and definitions and stories, right? It's all about people possibly bringing a photo of someone who they think is a good leader and argue. See, right? You have to argue why yours is the best version of leadership. What you're doing is a self-reflection of like, what do I believe? What is important? What does it look like, right? And you can do that again. Get people to do a timeline. Do this for yourself. What were the most influential, good, bad, in between leaders in your life that are influencing what you believe leadership is, right? And then what are you going to hold and say, yeah, that actually works? What are you going to chuck out? What are you going to say, this works for us? This is what we need right now, but my ideal state is something different in the future, right? Because we know that with awareness comes choice. Okay, so do some of these activities. You've now defined yourself, what leadership means, what you value. Like I said, it can be hard work, discipline, authority, motivation, energy, any of those pieces, empathy. Right? You've defined it. There's now an awareness. Now people can have a choice. Am I in? Am I out? Right? Well, what am I doing here? Right? What do I need to do to get here? This is from an incredible book called Radical Candor. I encourage you all to check it out. One of the ways that maybe you've defined leadership on your team is like captains. Maybe, right? Captains. And so what you then have to try and do is say, okay, well, what are my people who are showing poor performance towards moving towards what it means to be a leader, but strong signs of improvement, who I really need to invest time and effort in? Who are showing a poor performance with no signs of improvement that we have to ask to either get off the bus or start showing improvement? And then recognizing actually two different types of people, right? Who are the ones who genuinely want that growth, genuinely want to be what we call a superstar, right? They want to be a captain. They want to be a coach. They want to be that defined leadership role, right? And you start setting them tasks that stretch them towards what that looks like. You've defined it, right? But then there are other incredible people who maybe never ever want that role, but they still want to be leaders. They want to be rock stars. They want to be stable, right? So continue to give them opportunities to be on leadership councils, or to be part of mentor groups, without being like, well, you have to be a captain or not. This is how we define leadership, right? You're not a leader if you don't sign up for this, right? If you're not getting better at that, what if you can just keep engaging them and they have their own leadership journey, right? So it's something to think about. With awareness comes choice. A lot of people always ask about leadership assessments. I believe they have an incredible place in this journey. Again, this is something we've built out at Strive and utilize other resources because of what we think, right? What we believe is important for leaders within our programs, right? There's many more out there. I encourage you to find them. But what this really does, it allows you to assess, where am I at? What am I good at? Where am I missing? Where do I need to grow? It also shows you, where's your team missing, right? So if you have a whole bunch of people who are leading by example, or leading by encouraging, and no one's leading by enforcing, we cannot be shocked when people aren't holding themselves accountable if that's not their natural tendency. What we do need to do is then focus on growing, right, that gap of that opportunity for growth, right? And what's also interesting is it's wise to think about not what you think you lead like, right? But what others, how you come across to others. So having your players do a self-assessment, be like, this is, I feel like this represents me. And then their teammates being like, that's not how you come across to me, right? There's a process of self-awareness, right? And then a process of an awareness for how you're pursued. But again, can you create something or find something that really aligns with what you create as a framework for leadership on your team? Because after all, right, words are important, but getting real clarity, right? When we say respect, what do we mean by respect, right? What does respect look like? Does that mean never shouting at anyone? Does that mean never arguing, right? Does that mean being on time? What does it look like, right? What does it look like to be that good leader on your team? Have you defined that so people can buy in? One of the cornerstones that we don't know about leadership is that they are people who adhere to and have a growth mindset as much as possible, right? Where they want a challenge. They believe that they were not born with an innate ability. He or she or they is a born leader. No, they're people like, through opportunities, I can grow. Through effort, I may get better. Now, this is not to say that everyone will be able to come to that elite status of leadership on your team as you've defined it, right? Just like everyone may not be able to score 100 goals or to dunk a basketball, but they sure as heck can work hard towards it, right? Because they're given opportunities to fail. They're given opportunities to learn. They're given opportunities to grow, right? And they have that mindset to take those opportunities, right? It's a huge thing. And they see these moments of toughness and difficulties, not as these OMG moments, but as an OFG, as an opportunity for growth, right? Wow, our team did not deal with that conflict well. None of you are good at doing this. You're not good at holding each other accountable. We're never good. All right, we just learned a heck of a lot about our team, that we're not good at holding each other accountable. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to learn this? What do we need to practice? What do we need to level set on, right? And those are the opportunities for growing leaders on your team. And so how can you create them, right? How can you look at something like this and say, hey, a good leader on my team has to be really good at communicating, has to be really good at teamwork, has to be really gritty. Great. So what opportunities are you going to create for them to learn and practice those things? One of the things I really like doing to help is, once you define leadership, is giving your players or even yourself a success journal, where every day they get to write down 5, 10 bullet points of what they did that matched the definition of success. And then also highlighting, what did you do that was an opportunity for growth that wasn't quite there, right? It builds self-esteem, it builds confidence, it builds self-awareness, it builds an emotionally intelligent leader, right? Have them bring in motivational quotes, right? And present to each other and say, hey, this is what it means to me. This is why I think it's important. I believe it also goes with our definition of leadership, right? It's having them do the same with bringing in the photo of somebody who they think is a leader. Maybe ask, who's a bad leader? Who's a good leader? Who would be a good leader on our team, but not a good leader on another team? Who would be a bad leader on our team, but a good leader somewhere else? You're constantly hammering home leadership, leadership, leadership. It looks like this on our team. It looks like this on our team. Here is your opportunity. You may grow into this, right? It is utilizing one of those assessments, be it a DISC, a strengths finder, the colors, the leadership styles we use, right? But using it as a tool for discussion, not you are this and you shall forever remain this, right? It's a really great place to be talking and working from. Utilizing a really good book that says, listen, if I believe in energy and motivation, maybe using something like the energy bus, right? Like saying, literally, this is a cornerstone. You want to be a successful leader on our team? This is it. This is what we work towards, and having that discussion. I'm going to end this with, I get this question all the time. How should we pick captains on our team? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know enough about your team. But what I do know is if you can define the character traits you want as leaders on your team, and then decide how do we get there, that will influence how you decide on captains. So if you think teamwork and collaboration and working together is really, really important, then maybe you should vote and have discussions on captains, right? If you think discipline and authority and other things like that then maybe just you should decide, right? Or if you believe that growth only happens over time, maybe it's seniors, right? But how you do it has to be rooted in, right, what you've defined. So thank you so much for spending your time watching us, listening to us. We really appreciate you being there. We will be having another round of Coach's Corner in the next couple of weeks. We're having everyone vote on these topics, and then we'll obviously get the information out. We've had some really, really great feedback. And so if there's any resources that we may provide to you or references that I made, please reach out, linda@striveleadership.org. And we look really, really forward to working with you, your program, and your team, and seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.